Is living on the Washington or the Oregon side of the Columbia River better? That's what we're talking about today. Hey, I'm your host, Hannah Dubyne. Welcome back to the Living in Vancouver and Camas, Washington YouTube channel. I'm so glad you're here today because we're talking about a topic that comes up often, which is, should I live in Portland Metro or should I live in Clark County, Washington, Vancouver, Washington? If you're moving to or within the area, this is going to be probably the #1 thing you need to decide upon right off the bat. I'm gonna give you my thoughts on the topic today, and full disclosure, I only work and live on the Washington side, but for good reason, and you're gonna hear about why I do that today. Also, sign up for our weekend newsletter, Weekend Happenings with Hannah, where we send you out the best 4 or 5 events happening in Vancouver and Clark County, Washington every weekend. It's super awesome. We'll have the link down below. So I have 9 things on my list that I'm gonna go over with you today. And just so you know, if I say Vancouver, I might kind of be referring to all of Clark County or all of this side. And the reason I refer to Vancouver is because Vancouver is the largest city on the Washington side. Okay, let's get into it. So the #1 thing to know is that both Vancouver and the Portland side are very different from each other. They're very separate, even though they're close in terms of where they are on the map, and they're both self-sustaining. So if you live in Vancouver and Clark County, Washington, there's not really any reason you need to go over the Portland side unless it's for something very specific or you have specific needs. In the same way, if you live over on the Portland side, there's not usually a reason you need to come over to the Vancouver side. Because of this phenomenon, most people, unless they work on one side or the other, they tend to stick on whatever side that they live on, because it's just easier that way. The clearest example I could give to you of this is myself. I don't go to the Portland side very often. It's almost like this black hole abyss on the map for me. It's right there and it's just a couple miles away, but I never go there. I go to Portland maybe once every 2 or 3 months to pick something up or go to a special event. But other than that, everything I need, want, and enjoy is right here on the Clark County side. #2 is the size difference. The Portland metro area, the 3 largest counties, have about 1.8 million residents. Whereas on the Washington side, Clark County has about 500,000 residents, and that is really our main county. The other 2 counties, 𝐂𝐿 and 𝐂𝐿, are much more rural and would not really be comparable to the 3 in Portland Metro. Because of the sheer size difference, with Clark County being about 25% as big as all of Portland Metro, you just get much more of a suburban, small town type of vibe over here on the Washington side, whereas the Portland side is much more close together, more urban living, even though there are plenty of suburban places to live as well. And for reference, right now, the city of Vancouver, our largest city, has just under 200,000 residents. The #3 thing to know is that Portland is very liberal. Now, you guys know if you've been watching me for a while, I don't really get into the weeds of politics. I love being friends and serving and working with clients all across the board. I really like working with nice people, so I don't really care too much which side you fall on, and I don't share my own personal political opinions, but I will say that Portland and Clark County are very different. Portland, very liberal, very blue, like probably one of the most in the entire country, whereas Clark County is more of a mix, even though it does lean more blue. I have heard of experiences from people in the past where they may agree with a lot of the politics in Portland, but if they don't agree on one certain subject or something that's very popular, they will be ousted from the group, they will be canceled, they will be, kicked out, not welcome. And that's not really a place that I want to live. That's not a community I want to be a part of. I don't think that we should be treating others like that, regardless of what the politics actually are. That's not a way to come to a successful conclusion. So over here on the Clark County side, it's more rational, I would say. People can get along even if they have differences in political opinions, and you may disagree with someone on some big topic, but you're not kicking them out, you're not banning them for life, you're not dragging them through the mud. I just don't think that's an appropriate way to treat people. #4, Portland is really dirty and gross. So this is specifically for the city of Portland itself. As you go out to surrounding suburban communities, they can definitely be nicer and more well-kept. But the city of Portland, downtown Portland, is not a friendly place to be. I never feel safe when I'm there. I never feel secure walking around. There's graffiti everywhere, there's tents everywhere, it's a mess. Needles, poop, people pooping, naked people. I mean, it's just like an alternate universe. Downtown Vancouver, just like every downtown, has its issues. There are some homeless people, you will see some graffiti, it's not 100% clean, but it's a completely different world when you cross the river and you go into Portland. So I much prefer to be on this side where we take care of our city. Our city has a page online where you can report if you are seeing an incident. I feel like our city is very good at responding to those things. They're doing the best they can, and they're coming up with plans to manage homeless situations and keeping our city nice. Number 5, I think that Clark County has much more promising development than the Oregon side. Over here in Clark County, we have a whole bunch of beautiful waterfront developments going in. These are kind of going to be staples of the community going forward. We had the Vancouver waterfront, which has been in the works for over 15 years. It finally opened. It's glorious. It's beautiful. It's a great community place to be. Ridgefield will be getting a nice waterfront. Port of Camas and Washougal will be having a waterfront. Eventually, the Camas paper mill is going to go away in a couple decades. We hope that will turn into a community waterfront as well. We also have lots of single-family housing and townhome developments going on over here. If you live in Clark County, you're going to be a little bit more spaced apart from your neighbors. You're going to have more room than, say, if you live in Tigard or Tulane or Happy Valley. I've heard that some of those areas just feel really tight to people because they're so dense, there's so many people. There's just not really a lot of room to development. So again, I think the development is much more promising over here. Number 6, our tax situation is much better. We obviously do not have a state income tax, which is a huge benefit, especially if you're a saver and not really a spender. Because we don't have state income tax, we do have state sales tax, anywhere from like 8 to 10%. But if you're not spending all your money, you're probably going to come out net positive. I've also noticed that our property taxes here are much lower than some areas in the Portland Metro. Some areas in the Portland Metro actually have very low property taxes, like kind of an anomaly. But I've also seen other areas where they're super high. And if like I have a client coming from Portland area and they're buying the same value of house, like a $600,000 house to a $600,000 house here, their property taxes might go down from anywhere from 30 to 50%, which is a lot. Number 7, another reason why I really like living on this side of the river in Washington is because it's not as dense. Now, this is one of those things, different strokes for different folks. If you want to live in more of an urban setup and you are okay being close to your neighbors and biking and walking and all of those things, that's more the vibe over in Portland. But over here in the Washington side, we have more single family homes, more land, more room to spread out, which I really enjoy. Number 8, which kind of adds on to my last point, is that this is more of a car-centric area. You can't get by very well in Clark County without a car. There's not a lot of spots you can live here where you can just take the public transport, walk, or bike. That would be like downtown Vancouver, downtown Camas, and maybe downtown Ridgefield, but they're not going to offer nearly as many options or restaurants, places, etc. as you would get over on the Portland side. So if taking public transport, walking, biking is more your jam, you're gonna have more options on the Portland side. Whereas here, if you're okay taking a car, then this is gonna be a great setup for you. Number 9, my last point on Oregon versus Washington, Portland versus Vancouver, is that the laws I find are much more stringent in Oregon. This applies to a multitude of things I've seen over the years. If you're an employer, you're gonna have to follow a lot more rules. If you're a landlord, a lot more rules. Some of them are super wacky. If you work for yourself and you have some sort of professional license, like I had a client who said she was a massage therapist and it was all these hoops she had to jump through to try and transfer her license there, and she didn't want to deal with it. The one that drives me the most crazy is the gas pumping law. There are 2 states in the United States that you have to get your gas pumped by an attendant. You're not allowed to do it yourself. If you're not from Oregon or whatever the other state is, it's one over on the East Coast, this sounds insane to you because pumping your own gas is not even something you think about. But Oregon made this law to put more jobs in the market, and I think it's the stupidest thing ever because it's a waste of economic productivity, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money. I've sat at the gas station sometimes for 20 minutes. No, I don't want to do that. So I think some of the laws in Oregon are really whacked out. They're not good for anyone, and I like it over here on the Washington side better. Overall, there are about 500,000 people that enjoy living on the Washington side more than the Oregon side, and 1.8 million people in the Portland Metro that would prefer to live on the Oregon side. Different strokes for different folks. I'm not going to come out and say that, you know, Oregon is terrible for everyone because those 1.8 million people really enjoy it. However, I do think we've got a lot more good things going for us on this side of the river. I think looking into the future, another 5, 10, 15 years, Washington, Clark County is going to be further ahead than Portland. If you're thinking of moving to or within Vancouver, Camas, or Clark County, Washington, myself and my team at Dubyne Realty Group would love to be of service to you. We help buyers and sellers every single day here, so please text us, DM us, or email us. We'd love to serve you. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.